So guys, after another busy weekend, we are back again, Championship Roundup. Let's jump into it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. We've got loads to discuss in today's video. As always, I want to get your guys' thoughts on the games that you were watching this weekend, so do let me know down below, how did your team get on? As always, if you do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like. If we get it 400, that would be massively appreciated. We'll have an update on the prediction league coming out later in the week, so make sure to stay tuned on the channel for that. But without any further ado, let's jump into this one. And so we'll start out with the Friday night game, which saw Swansea claim their first win of the season. Russell Martin getting his first win as Swansea manager as they saw off Bristol City by 1-0. Joel Perreault's goal in the 19th minute being enough to separate these two sides, where honestly Bristol City weren't actually all too bad, to be honest, in this one, and they definitely deserved at least a point from it with the amount of chances they created. Now, the problem that we had with Bristol City last season was creating chances and then really getting into those goal scoring positions. In this game, that wasn't really the case. It was just a question of not taking those chances when they actually came around. You know, you can see by the match stats to the side of me here how many goal scoring opportunities Bristol City actually created in this one. Bender, I thought, was quite good in it for Swansea. Maybe at times his distribution was a little bit dodgy, but when Bristol City threw anything at him in terms of, you know, shots coming in at him and stuff like that, he looked quite comfortable with it all. And in the end, it was a little bit of sort of a smash and grab performance from Swansea in this one, really, and I think they were in need of that sort of result just where they could grind it and get over the line, because I'm in no doubt that the philosophy and the sort of style of football will come as the season goes on, but they were in need, you know, of picking up some results here early on in the season. So frustrating from Bristol City's point of view, because they definitely deserve something from this game. What's going to happen now with Nahki Wells, you know, with the club potentially being open to sell him in this window? We'll wait and see, because yeah, it does feel like they're in need of a few more touch-ups in the final third. Next up then to QPR up against Barnsley. What a game this was, and really a game of two halves, as it finished as a 2-2 draw. Now, for the first half, Barnsley were absolutely all over QPR. QPR couldn't get out of their own half. Barnsley were creating chances at will. It was 2-0 at half time, but it could have been 3 or 4 with the chances they were carving out in this one. Callum Styles was brilliant. His movement off the ball was causing all sorts of problems. It was Freezer with the first goal and Coley Woodrow with the second, which was set up by Callum Styles. Now, credit definitely has to be given to Mark Warburton here, because he was proactive in the changes that he made. He made a double substitution before half time in this one, and that clearly had an impact on the second half. I think that for making those sort of in-game tweaks when things aren't going well, Mark Warburton has a history of being decent with that sort of thing. I remember it was a couple seasons ago when QPR came to Deepdale. Preston were 1-0 up, you know, nothing was really happening for QPR. He made a couple changes at half time, switched up the system, and it completely changed their fortunes for the second half. They went on to win that game, you know, 3-1, and it was a similar, you know, shift in momentum in the second half of this game. Barnsley definitely had chances to kill it off, albeit they were a little bit more few and far between in the second half, because the pressure was definitely on their back line as QPR were coming forward. Chair's first goal, absolute strike and a half into the roof of the net, and then Charlie Austin in the 91st minute gets QPR back into the game. I mean, it shows a mentality, it shows a bit of tactical nous there. Both these sides, I think, will be a lot of fun to watch this season. Next then to Ewood Park, where West Brom once again claimed all 3 points as they walked away with a 2-1 away victory. You can see by the stats to the side of me, this probably could have been more than 2 for West Brom. They created a hell of a lot in this one. I think they had 7 big chances created in this match. They hit the woodwork about 4 times. Yeah, in and around the box, they are going to be a lot of fun this season, and they scored perhaps one of the quickest goals we'll see this season, actually. Straight away, that intensity was there from West Brom. They hit the bar, the ball comes back out to Alex Mowatt, who hits such a sweet volley. The technique for that is absolutely flawless, and yeah, that sort of set the tempo from then on for West Brom, who were absolutely relentless in their attacks going forward. Phillips made it 2 just before half time. Blackburn did get a goal back at a decent time. Clarkson does quite well for this one. Looking forward to seeing more of him as the season goes on, but Sam Johnson makes a little bit of a mess of it, and Brereton gets another goal for his season. After that, like I say, West Brom probably could have killed this one off and got a couple more goals, but to be fair to him, Kaminski in net for Blackburn actually had a very good afternoon with some of the saves he made, but 2-1 in the end. Like I say, maybe flatters Blackburn a little bit, but West Brom are really looking like the real deal at the moment. It's going to take a lot to come in between them and promotion, I feel like. Next then to Bournemouth up against Blackpool. Not many people were tipping Blackpool to get anything from this one, but a second half comeback ensured that they didn't leave empty-handed. Now, Solanke absolutely brilliant in the first half, clinical with both chances. Marcondes does really well to set up the second one, and he sort of made the first one for himself. Second half though, the game sort of got away from Bournemouth, and you can't help but feel like maybe that is a little bit of their sort of naivety at the back. You know, they are still a fairly young squad in that sense with some of the people they had playing in this game. Obviously, they've recently signed Cahill, so yeah, you can't help but think that someone like Cahill probably would have had an impact on this game had he been playing in that second half when things just seemed to get away from them a little bit. Solanke had a chance at 2-0 to make it 3. If he had put that one-on-one away, maybe this one's a bit of a different story, but credit to Blackpool here, because I think that a lot of other sides would have probably rolled over in this situation. James Husband gets them back into it on 57, and just 3 minutes later they go for the jugular, get the penalty, and Jerry Yates sticks it down the middle. For Jerry Yates, especially for him to get off the mark, I think is important. You know, if he'd have gone the first sort of month or two without scoring in the league, you know, that sort of thing can play on a striker's mind, so that'll be important for him to get off the mark here. And a good point overall, you know, to come back from 2 goals down. It's just now about getting that first win on the board. Next then to Cardiff, who got another win under their belts in this one as they saw off Millwall by 3 goals to 1. Now, first off, there didn't seem to be all too much between these two sides. You could even maybe make a case that Millwall had perhaps edged it, but there really didn't seem to be all too much goal-mouth action. Really, what was the spark for Cardiff was Ryan Giles' introduction. You know, they needed that little bit more to be able to get that ball into the box, and Giles, is he one of the best sort of set piece deliverers, crossers of the ball in the Championship at the moment? He might just be, because he set up each of Aidan Flint's goals in this one. Aidan Flint, by the way, is currently leading the way in the Championship for the most goals scored this season. He's now on 4 for the season, so giving Rob Dickie a run for his money for the Championship Golden Boot this season. But I mean, listen, Cardiff caused all sorts of carnage in the Blackpool game with sort of long balls going into the box, throw-ins and stuff like that. Blackpool couldn't deal with it whatsoever. I thought that Millwall might be a little bit more up to the challenge in terms of stifling that sort of thing, but they weren't really. You know, Aidan Flint scores 2 pretty much free headers in this one, and obviously Morrison gets the 3rd from a long throw-in. There was a period at 2-1 where Millwall did go for a little bit more. Obviously Benicophobe got the goal to get them back into this one. Scott Malone had a glorious chance to make it 2-2, but he put that one off the bar, and obviously Sean Morrison wrapped things up in the end with a bit of a questionable celebration, I think it's fair to say. But I mean, this is a style of play for Cardiff. It might not be to everyone's acquired taste, but it's effective, it's working, they're scoring goals and they're winning matches at the moment. The same can't be said for Millwall, who are yet to win this season. Next game they've got at the Den is up against Blackpool on Saturday. Big game in that one, considering neither team have won yet. Next then to Coventry up against Reading. Now, I think it would be fair to say that Reading's opener, John Swift's penalty after 40 minutes, definitely came against the run of play in this one, because Coventry had most certainly had the run of, you know, the majority of the chances in that first half. Second half, and a couple changes need to be made. Coincidentally, both Allen and Godden, who were introduced in the second half, went on to score the goals which won this one for Coventry. But I mean, you can see by the match stats to the side of me, it was clearly the home side who were crafting out the better chances in this one. Allen gets them back into it on 62 minutes, and then Matty Godden in the 98th minute pops up with the winner. Coventry have enjoyed leaving things late so far this season in a couple of their matches now, but now more than deserving 3 points in this one. Ben Sheff especially was one player who I wanted to pick out from this game. His stats after the game looked absolutely fantastic. He looked like he was popping up absolutely everywhere, you know, whether he was playing in midfield or when he dropped further back into that back 3. He looks like he's grown as a player quite a bit over this summer, because I know that quite a few Coventry fans were a little bit unsure about getting him back after sort of how last season had been. You know, he'd been a little bit hit and miss in some of his performances then, but if he shows more of what he did in this game here, then I think it won't be too long before he's a fan favourite there. Great stuff from Coventry. Next up then, we had the only goalless draw of the weekend being played out between Derby and Middlesbrough. Now, Neil Warnock would have been keen to tighten things up in this game for Borough after that 3-2 loss last time out against QPR, and while they did do that at the back, they just looked a little bit toothless up front in this one, to be honest with you. They had one spell where they were really on top in the second half, and if they were going to score, the goal was always going to come in that period. You know, I think that Matt Crooks hit the crossbar in that period when they were on top, but apart from that, they didn't really show all too much in this one, and Derby probably had the better of it for large spells of this one actually. Joe Lumley I thought had a decent game for Borough, as Derby asked quite a few questions of him. Once again for Derby, impressed with that partnership at the back between Curtis Davis and Phil Jagielka. You can tell that there is a wealth of experience between them two. And for Derby at the end of the day, it is another point in the it is another point in the right direction. Their next game is up against Nottingham Forest, and considering how they've started the season, I'm so excited for that game now. Next then we had Fulham beating Hull by 2-0. The home side just having too much quality in this one. Now, was there a foul in the build to the first goal? Possibly. It was Seri taking the corner, and then it was Adebayo blocking off Greaves, I think, for that one. Mitrovic in the end has a free header because of that. Potentially that one could have been ruled out with VAR, but at that Fulham looked to take complete control of this one. Robinson was a real threat on that left hand side throughout, making those overlapping runs, getting those balls into the box. He assists the next goal for Carvalho, which is taken brilliantly. And in the second half, Fulham definitely could have had more goals. Mitrovic had a free header which just went wide. And overall, Fulham have had things pretty easily so far in the Championship. They've been pretty comfortable in most of their performances, with maybe the exception being that one they had against Borough on the opening day. But in most of the other ones, they've looked pretty comfortable so far. Now, I do feel like their next game up against Stoke will be their first, real test of the season with how well Stoke have started out so far. But now things looking pretty good for Fulham at the moment. Coming up next, we then had Birmingham 5, Luton Town 0. And I could not have been further away with my score prediction in this game. I went 1-0 Luton. I mean, it's typical of the Championship that Birmingham are coming off the back of 2 games where they've not scored. Luton are coming off the back of a clean sheet, and Birmingham absolutely smashed Luton 5-0 in this one. But credit to Lee Bowyer and the way that Birmingham set up for this one, because they played this game absolutely perfectly, and sort of how the first half against West Brom got away from Luton, this whole game seemed to get away from them, and Birmingham were absolutely terrific in front of goal. The Roberts goal after 7 minutes sort of set the tempo for this one. Scott Hogan bagging the brace, I think, will be massive for his confidence, because up until this point he hadn't really got off to the best start to the season. Gardner's goal was definitely the pick of them in terms of the quality. It beautifully just bends into that far post. But the player that I wanted to pick out was Chong in this game, playing in that number 10 position. He was absolutely unplayable, especially for, I think it was Birmingham's 3rd goal, that lung-busting run from his own box into that Luton box, and Hogan ends up finishing it off. Special performance, and I mean, this is why we love the Championship. And next up then, finally Preston managed to claim our first win of the season and get our first points on the board as we saw off Peterborough by 1-0. Now, this should have been much more comfortable than the scoreline suggests here. Preston had an abundance of chances in this one, but it was the 1 goal which was enough in the end. Ryan Ledson's ball in meets Patrick Bauer's head. Pim, a little bit weak for this one, as we've seen him be for a couple of sort of crosses that have come into the box so far. He was very much sort of rooted to his line, and Bauer's header just had too much in the end. But I mean, apart from that, Pim actually had a very good afternoon for Peterborough here, because I mean, he saved them on multiple occasions. I don't think it would have been that far cry of a suggestion, to suggest that this one could have finished like 3 or 4-0 Preston with the amount of chances we crafted out. I thought that come the end of the match, that might have come back to bite us a little bit, because Peterborough, I mean, they weren't great in this one, but they had a couple moments of quality. Sariki Dembele had a chance cleared off the line, and Clark Harris with the last touch of the game, which he had a chance which was tipped round the post by Daniel Iverson. But much better from North End in this one. Ledson was impressive in midfield. Whiteman and DJ all played well together, and Vandenberg and Bauer were both brilliant at the back. But if this game showed anything, it was clear that North End are still in desperate need of a goal scorer. It was a good performance here, but cracks were sort of papered over, I think it's fair to say. We still have some issues that need to be ironed out over these next few weeks, but this was definitely a step in the right direction. Next then to Bramall Lane, where Sheffield United lost once again, this time to the hands of Huddersfield, who honestly probably haven't played great in either of their last 2 matches, but that doesn't matter because they've walked away with 6 points from their last 2 now. It was clear to see that Huddersfield were looking to play on counter-attacks for this game. The first half especially, they did have to soak up a lot of pressure, and Lee Nichols, whenever he was called upon, had the answers really. I think that he's been an improvement so far on Schofield. I think it was right that they took Schofield out of the firing line, and so far, you know, both games that he's been put in for, they've won both matches. Sheff United did have a flurry of chances towards the end of that first half, but like I say, Huddersfield were keeping them at bay. But then in the second half, Huddersfield were able to make those counter-attacks pay, and Sheffield United were punished for not taking those earlier chances. Josh Koroma with the goal at the second time of asking, after Wes Foderingham had dealt with the first attempt. Sheffield United do get it back into the game through Billy Sharp, but then in the 94th minute, Huddersfield pop up with the winner, and it's really shoddy defending by Sheffield United. I know a few people have picked out Ben Davis, who maybe needs to be a little bit stronger with it, but at the far post there was Sander Berg, Ollie Norwood and Ollie McBurney, who all completely went to sleep and left Colwell completely unmarked in the box. They all had stopped expecting the referee to blow for a foul, and when it didn't come, they were left with egg on their face there. And that's more so than anything, it's just like a mentality thing, which I think has been a bit of an issue for Sheffield United so far this season, because there's clearly quality in this squad, but something just doesn't seem right with them at the moment. And I mean, if they are going into this international break, you know, after the next weekend now, having not won any of their matches so far, there's problems to be had. And then last up, we had Stoke beating Nottingham Forest by 1-0 Now, I think that this game was a lot more comfortable than the scoreline would suggest here. Stoke by far and away the better team in this one, and I can't lie, the more I see them, the more I'm coming around to really being convinced by them this season. And stylistically, there's been a real shift with Stoke this season. I think that last season, you know, the sort of buzzwords that we'd always use with Stoke were sort of like, they'd look to grind things out a little bit, you know, they'd look for individual bits of brilliance. You know, there was maybe a bit of an over-reliance on someone like Nick Powell there last season, but the system now that's in place and was on show for this game here, I really think there's something in it with Stoke this season. Their recruitment has been really strong. I think that that was emphasised with Romain Sawyers coming in. I think that he's another positive addition into this midfield, another ball player who's going to look to get on the ball. You know, him and Varancic potentially playing off each other, I think could lead to some really nice goals being scored this season. And I mean, that was on show in this one. I can't say how many times I've watched that goal scored by Josh Tymon. It was an absolute beauty, back to front, great stuff here from Stoke, who could have had way more than the one goal they eventually got. You know, Forest were incredibly poor. They didn't have a shot at all in the first half. They offered pretty much zero goal threat throughout this one, and that's been a real problem for them and Chris Hughton so far this season. Their next game before the international break in the league is up against Derby, and should they lose that one, you'd fear for Hughton, because it already feels like, you know, we're getting close to the stage where it's too late to turn things around, even as early on as it is into this season. But guys, there we have it. That will wrap it up for today's video. As always, get all your thoughts in the comments down below. In terms of my results of the weekend, I'm going to have to give that to Birmingham for beating Luton by 5-0, especially after I had that one predicted as a Luton win. Goal of the weekend is really tricky. It's between Moat and Tymon, and I'm so split on them because Moat was such a sweet volley into the top corner. But I think I'm going to have to give it to Tymon. You know, it was such a flawlessly executed team goal. There were some lovely touches and flicks in the build-up to it, and I am always a bit of a sucker for a team goal. So that gets my goal of the week, but leave all your thoughts in the comments down below. Apart from that though, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. So if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and do stick around and subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.